Hi, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The State of Leadership Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And I think is our second time doing this. Third time?
It's
Three
our third
times?
time. I think it's our third time.
Three times a charm, having a discussion about the lessons that we took away from the Super Bowl. And so both of us are going to share our lessons. We did not share them with each other in advance. So they could be the same, they could be different. We're going to discuss them either way. And we invite you to join the conversation. You can drop in the chat or in the comments. What lessons did you walk away with? Right? What lessons did you walk away with? Right? That we're very big believers that every experience is a learning experience, it's a learning opportunity. And so we can learn from Super Bowls, we can learn from sitting at the piano, or in Robert's case, with a guitar,
Bass guitar. Yep.
a bass guitar, or uh, martial arts, whatever, right? Whatever it is you do, every activity, there's opportunities to learn about life and opportunities to learn about leadership, because you learn about yourself and you can take those and just continue to improve. We're all about Kaizen here, right? Continuous improvement. So, Robert, why don't we start with you? Any opening thoughts, and then let's jump into the lessons that you walked away with from the Super Bowl.
Really, no opening statements except, man, that was a whipping. That was a whipping. And
That's a lesson in and of itself, right?
yeah, it's a good one. How do you come back from getting monumentally embarrassed? But that's a lesson for another show. So I have some of them are obvious. I was thinking about this. I didn't want to put too much thought into it. I wanted to go with what organically popped up in my mind, rather than really thinking really super deeply about it. But the first thing that came up was have a plan or a strategy, which is very obvious. You're there. They're two teams. They've looked at the tape. They know what they did the scouting report. They looked at the tape. They know what the other plays are, the other team's plays are, how they're going to defend against those plays, how they're going to attack against the defense, all that stuff. So that's the obvious one. The second one is also obvious. Work your plan, right? The plan that got you to the Super Bowl, continue to work your plan. And that makes sense. What got and this is what everybody does. What we find that gives us success, we tend to want to repeat. Here's where things may not be so obvious. Adjust your plan, adjust your strategy. So what the Eagles were doing was working extremely well for them. What the Chiefs were doing was not working well for them at all. And it seemed like they were trying to force their plan. Because I've watched Patrick Mahomes come back from really big deficits. But I was like, okay, he's done that lots of times. However, it wasn't working. It wasn't working. He got sacked, I don't know, maybe 5 times. It was just really bad. Like 4 or 5 times he had these sacks. So adjust your plan. Don't try to force things. You have to try something else. You can't keep forcing it. When what you're doing is not working, you need to try something different. And it just seemed like he was just going to try to force the passing game no matter what. And my last one is this really stood out to me. I am not an Eagles fan, although I did live in Pennsylvania for 4 years, not too far from Philly. Always a Giants fan. I will say that the Sixers are my second favorite team, pretty much, because of Dr. J. But anyway, I digress. But let me get back to my fourth lesson. My fourth lesson is have galvanizing language for your team. And this was very interesting when the Eagles did what they called the brotherly shove. They have a language for the things that they do that resonates with the team. It's really important.
Was that the tush push
It's when
equivalent?
everybody just pushed forward, right?
Okay.
That's called the brotherly shove, and
Okay.
that's what they called it. So it's galvanizing language that brings your team, unites your team. Um, we talked about that, in a past episode, that having galvanizing language is really important for your team. So those are my 4 lessons.
Okay. So there was plan.
Have a plan, have a strategy, adjust your plan. And so you
Adjust.
have a plan. No, sorry. Have a plan, work your plan, adjust your plan. Uh,
Okay.
make those adjustments when things aren't working. When I work with my clients, I say, okay, this is your plan. What if that plan doesn't work? Right? What if that plan doesn't work? Oh, have them create a secondary plan. And then I sometimes say, what if that plan doesn't work? So they have a third plan or tertiary plan, so that you have options. You're not just trying to do that same thing over and over again, that, by the way, people can see a mile away. Especially if they studied, we're talking sports, they did the scouting report, they studied the film, they know what you're going to do.
Right.
You have tells that you're not paying attention to because you're inside your body. Other people can see those tells. And so there you have it. So the last one was have galvanizing language. So it's have a plan, work your plan, make adjustments to your plan, and have galvanizing language, or language that unites the team.
Okay. So plan, right? Plan, work, adjust. Sort of those sort of go along with the first one I have, which is to be prepared.
Mhm.
And I would agree with you, right? And it's probably not that the Chiefs were not prepared. Although I will say this, as I was watching them, the feeling I had, and I said this to a couple of different people, was that I feel like they partied during the week too
I
much.
said the same thing. I said the same thing. They were in New Orleans. They went out.
And I was like, I just, it's something about the way they showed up, the energy, right? And we talk about energy as part of the simple leadership method. And it was, there was something that was just off. And so, and I'm sure it isn't that they didn't prepare, but the 3 pieces that you mentioned that go along with that. So you prepare, you have a plan, you work the plan, you adjust the plan. And I would agree. I felt like they, at least early on, there wasn't an attempt, or at least an apparent attempt, an obvious attempt to make any adjustments. I didn't see that. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel a shift in the energy, certainly until the second half. Right. They didn't score any points in the first half at all. And the end result was that even when they scored points in the second half, they did not score enough points to overcome the deficit they were in from the first half. So technically, theoretically, the Eagles could have scored nothing in this. They were so far ahead, they could have scored nothing in the second half. And the Chiefs still would have lost, right? They would have lost by 2 points rather than sort of getting blown out by 18. But it was that. So being prepared is you've got to start there. And so what do you do as a leader to prepare yourself? And you mentioned these, right? You're studying and analyzing the game. You need to know what the other side is going to do. And with the exception of maybe a couple of trick plays, which I don't recall there being any. There may have been, but I don't recall any. With the exception of that, every team has an identity, right? They have and they talk about this often, right? This is our team identity. And it sounds like the Eagles' identity is wrapped up in the theme of Philadelphia in general, right? Brotherly love, and we're here together, which is a little odd when you think of the Chiefs and the fact that they had won the last two Super Bowls. But maybe that was the point, right? That they had won the last two Super Bowls. Maybe there was this pressure to do this three-peat thing, or they were just complacent in that they've done it the last two times, and they've won the Super Bowl 3 out of the last 5, right? And so maybe there was something there, but I'm going to liken it in a minute when I talk about my second lesson to an experience that I've had over and over again. Unfortunately, over and over again. So you study and analyze the game, right? You develop a strong plan. We're in agreement on that. And then you got to practice, right? So again, I'm not making any assumptions that they went down there and that during this week preceding the game that they did absolutely no practice. But you got to not just practice, you have to practice as if, right? You need to practice as if. And so that means, having a particular mindset around what you're doing, and tapping into the strength of your team. And again, I just felt like I didn't see it. I didn't feel that coming from them. And it was almost from the beginning, you just had this feeling that it was going to go the way that it went. And so we are in agreement with those early lessons. So prepare the plan, the work the plan, and adjust the plan. Mm-hmm. My second lesson revolves around perseverance, right? And perseverance being a must. And so if you watch the game, you know that Kansas City didn't score any points in the first half, mm-hmm. but they didn't give up, mm-hmm. right? And that is so important for you as a leader and for your team, that sometimes, as much as you plan, prepare, work the plan, and even if you make adjustments, mm-hmm. macro adjustments, micro adjustments, it still may not go the way that you want. All we can do is what we can do. Right. And I have this conversation with my clients all the time. You don't control the outcome. You don't control the outcome. There are too many variables and factors that are a part of the ecosystems that we are a part of, the environments that we do the work that we do in. We can't control what other people do. We can't control what other people think. We can't control outside forces. They were in a dome, so at least they could control the weather. Right? Yeah. Right. They could control the weather, but beyond that, you can't control things that are outside of your control. And so all you can do is continue to keep throwing the ball, passing the ball, running the ball, trying something different. All you can do is keep showing up. And I will say that this is from the Chiefs side, that they did keep, right. They didn't go home. They didn't throw in the towel, which is easy to do. You're down 24-0. It would be easy to just call it in, right, for the rest Absolutely. Of the game. And so we have to work against that, feeling defeated, letting, because again, energy, when things are not going your way, it's easy to have that start to weigh you down, you start getting in your own head. It starts to show up then in your body language. You feel defeated, and it gets harder and harder to sort of muster what's needed in order to get the momentum to keep going. So I wanted to share, in my former life, and this is a sports story, not a work story. I played tennis. So I was a champion tennis player, not a champion of anything important, but I won tournaments, and later in life, I belonged to a tennis club, and I played on the tennis team. For those of you who played tennis, I was a 4.0 player. At least that's the way they categorized players at the time, the USTA at the time. And I practiced every day. I was at the club, and I hit balls every day, and I was playing, and I loved playing tennis. I grew up, my father was a tennis instructor, and so I grew up playing tennis, and it was really excited as an adult to play tennis. But I was not nearly as good at winning tennis as I was playing tennis. And I was thinking about this, sort of the being prepared and the energy and perseverance that came along with, when I played tennis in my later years. And I would get on the court, you warm up, and I'm hitting the ball really well. I'm thinking today's that day. It's gonna be good. And then the match starts, and it all goes to pot.
And all this stuff starts happening.
Right? It all goes to pot. And I could think of a couple of times, because I'm part of a team, and there's the pressure when you're part of a team as opposed to just playing for yourself. You got to do well for the team and bring that point home. And I would get in my head. And I remember having these conversations with myself. Just keep hitting the ball, right? If you just keep hitting the ball, it's going to be okay. Right? Hit the ball the way you can. And so if you watch tennis, if you watch any amount of tennis, it's probably applicable in all sorts of sports, but I still watch tennis. I love tennis. And when someone, what do they say? They're not on today.
Yeah.
Right? They're not on, or they didn't bring their A game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a vernacular that came from Tiger Woods and golf, and he would win tournaments without his A game. He would say, I didn't have my A game today, but he was still winning. And so we all have times when we don't show up with our A game. And the question is, what do you do? Do you give in? Do you quit? Do you just like, I'm going to get the ball over the net, or whatever is appropriate for the sport that you're playing or the team that you're a part of in business? Am I just going to call it in, or am I going to continue to do the things that I know are the things that will bring me success in this, right? Because again, you can't control the outcome. You can only control your actions. You can only control your mindset. And as a leader, it's incumbent upon you to help bring that out in your team members when things are not going well, when the sales are not happening, or when the creative ideas, that those creative juices are not flowing, right? To keep encouraging them to show up, but not just show up the way you know you can. Show up in your potential, and then trust that things will turn around. And so it just made me think with, as the Chiefs were sort of, you know, going along, struggling in that first half, that in the second half, at least I would say the defense never did get it together.
No.
At least the offense did, right? And that's the other part of the game. There's two sides of this coin. There's the defensive side and the offensive side. And so when your offense is not clicking, right, what impact does that have energetically on the defense, and vice versa? And so if both don't come together at the same time, maybe you get lucky and the other team, whatever is working for them, is not having it is the opposite of what's working for you, and you can sort of get there. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, didn't work out for them.
It didn't happen. No, I really agree with what you're saying. I think something else popped up into my head when you were talking, particularly about your experience as an athlete, and these things do apply in business and leadership. There are so many things that can affect your performance. It's, when you're an athlete or as a leader, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating right? Is your head in the game? Are you in your own head? Are you saying positive things to yourself? Are you saying negative things to yourself?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan B? All these things.
Plan G.
Or you sometimes, look, there are times when you have to, and all of it is, are you good under pressure? Can you make adjustments and switch up when everything seems to be falling apart? Can you keep your cool? And those things are really important. And sometimes the other person just has your number. They just do. They just, and that's what happened in the Super Bowl. Sometimes they just have, you don't give up, but sometimes they got your game. But you learn from those things. You come back, you reassess, and you learn from those things. I remember this is really interesting because it's not a story I like to tell, but I remember years ago, I was doing a negotiation with a shop steward for a union. And one of the things that's always worked in my favor is because I present very professorial and nerdy, that people tend to think that I'm a pushover. And I remember, I'm not really proud of this, but this is, I got into the meeting, right before the meeting. It was a grievance meeting. And the shop steward came in and they were really nice to me. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be very, we're going to collaborate. We're going to work something out. But then when the meeting started, that person attacked me like a Doberman. And just jumped all over me, was calling me names, it was attacking me. And then when I responded with similar energy, I saw the shock in their eyes, because I was like, oh, okay, I can do that too. And what that person didn't realize about me is that is my A game. That's usually at that time what I would go with. But I had learned different skills. I had learned how to collaborate with people. I had learned to tone things down. And so and I work with my clients when they have similar experiences. I have a client that's a type A personality, and they're struggling with learning some of these softer communication skills. I'll say, look, you already have that. I don't want you to think of that skill, that trait as a negative thing. Think of it as a tool that you could use when you need it, because it's helped you so far. because usually these people are very successful folks. Like, what we're doing now is we're adding tools to your toolbox so that you can do other things and you don't have to rely on that, because at some point that's not going to work for you. And I have to tell you that's been a really good way to approach that with people that have one way of doing things. I'm going to pull my blinds here because the sun's going to bake me.
No problem. All right. So, when we think about perseverance and being persistent, and we think about what's not working and how we can pivot, how we can adjust, right? And continue to do what we know works. And it's one of those things where in basketball, right, you got Steph Curry. If you ever watch basketball games, Steph Curry, or any basketball player for that matter, right, and they're shooting shots and they're not going in. They don't stop shooting, right? They
Even though sometimes you wish they would.
So, definitely, as a fan watching, it was like, okay, that's not working. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But there's something is like playing through, right? It's like pushing through that and that's the persistence that we have to, with our teams, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? Again, do I need to make some adjustment strategy? Do I need to make some adjustment? Has someone seen that I'm doing something in a way that's technically off? Do I need to make an adjustment? Mindset, physically, emotionally, etc. So you do need to do that. And that's one of the reasons that I imagine there's a halftime, right? In a lot of sports. And so it gives you a chance to make an assessment, and you get commentators to come in and say, you're doing this isn't working for you. What are you going to do differently in the next half or the next quarter or the next inning, whatever it is, because there's a recognition that something's not working and you need to make an adjustment. But what you don't do is give up. Yeah. And so taking the time to assess and reassess what's working, what's not working, what tweaks can be made. And sometimes that adjustment may be an overhaul, right? And being willing to look at that to make a decision how to move forward. So how do you get to a place where you can be persistent, right? So a few strategies about developing persistence is, stepping into what you do with a growth mindset. Right. We have fixed mindsets, growth mindsets, and having that mindset where you're saying that this isn't about failing. This is about learning, right? Moment to moment. Yes, you're going to, after the game, you're going to watch tape, right? So there's the big learnings, but what are the micro learnings? And if different people that's why they have so many coaches, right? Because different people are paying attention to different things with different players to see what are the micro adjustments that need to be made in the midst of this. Also, if you're going to be persistent, you got to be clear about what your goals are. Right. You need to have achievable goals. Obviously, no one goes into the Super Bowl with the goal of not winning. So it's not that, but being really clear what that means and the why behind it. And for your team, being clear, right? The big picture goal, and then the smaller manageable goals that lead you to the outcome that you're working towards. What are the things that you need to be doing on a daily basis in order to get to the big goal? or maybe even a more hourly basis, right? What are those things, the manageable steps that you need to be paying attention to? Because it's those things that create momentum for your team. Again, the energy that fuels you so that progress continues to move you forward, regardless of what the outcome is in the moment. And that's the piece that often takes us off track, right? We're so wrapped up in the outcome that we're not paying attention to the little wins along the way, which is why football, right, is set up with 4 downs, 10 yards and 4 downs, right? That's the progress, right? You can get it all in, get a touchdown in one fell swoop, or you can get there 1 yard at a time.
Makes
Right.
a lot of sense.
So we got to pay attention. Those are the small wins, and we need to pay attention to them. Obviously, your team has to be mentally tough and prepared, and paying attention to that. So how do you get there? That's mindfulness. It's the things we talk about all the time. Robert mentioned this earlier, your self-talk, right? The positive self-talk, at visualization. What does it look like to stay prepared and on plan when you don't have your A game, right? And you are down to, plan G or K or whatever it is, right? And because you've thought this through, right? Or you can adjust and think it through on the fly, right? That mental toughness can come along with that. So all of those things become really important in helping you to be persistent. And then I would say that the last one is that you until the final bell rings or the buzzer rings, or right, you're down so far that it's just mathematically impossible for you to get there, right? You're not going to score 40 points in 2 minutes, right?
No.
It's not going to happen, right? But technically, until it's over, it's not over. And you should continue to be putting in the energy as if you still have a chance, until you don't have a chance any longer.
Right. It takes, somebody once said this, it takes a second to change your life, right? Anything can happen until you go beyond that point. And it was very clear watching the game that there was a point where it just wasn't going to happen. It was like you said, it was like there wasn't enough time. The score was way too large for them to do anything. But you don't stop playing. You still play because there are lessons to learn. There are things to one of the things that we sometimes forget about sports is that it teaches us very important lessons about it for after sports.
Yes.
And I say this all the time, maybe too much, is that I can typically tell when someone hasn't been engaged in any kind of sports. When I'm engaging with them personally, I'm not talking about in business, I'm in personal life. I have some acquaintances where everything is about them. They haven't learned how to work as a team because they've never been in that environment. And it's really important. And so sports teach you those lessons. And sometimes we forget those things because our typical image of an athlete is not someone who is a scholar as well. But there are scholar athletes, and they give awards for those things. So sports can teach you some very valuable lessons. They don't teach you anything if you're just about the sport, right?
Right.
And we all go through that. All athletes go through that. I went through that when I was, an athlete in high school. It was just about the sport. But after I graduated and I think I ran for like, I was a track athlete. I ran for like part of a season in college. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. But those lessons stay with me. Hard work. I was a captain. Responsibility. My job as a captain was to run the practices and to make sure everyone did their job during those practices. I was the relay captain as well. So you say track, well, track's not a team sport, but when you're on a relay, you have to be a team. And so I learned a lot of things, and we learned, it's like, working with the coach is like, okay, this person, I'm going to put this person first because they're not the fastest, but they have a pretty good time here. This person's, not is our weakest runner, but they're still faster than most. I'm going to put them maybe third leg, and I'm going to put this person in the anchor leg because they can make up any time, make up any, distance that, we're lacking. So you learn, so you take those lessons and you learn them, but we forget that these are learning experiences, which are why sports are very important.
Absolutely. They're metaphors for life,
Yes.
right? And each sport brings its own set of metaphors and analogies to bear. And maybe we'll do an episode and we can pull a bunch of different sports and talk about the different metaphors that come from
that's great. Yeah.
I think that would be interesting.
It'd be fun.
And so my third one, so I mentioned halftime, is less about the game and sort of about the halftime. And my lesson that comes from that is about being unapologetically you. Right? Just being yourself. And being yourself isn't just about self-expression. It's actually a very important leadership strength, right? And the most influential leaders, athletes, artists, etc., are successful because they are who they are. They stay true to their values, and they refuse to conform to expectations that don't align with those values. And so going back to Steph Curry, right? His strength was a three-pointer. He was small and scrawny in college, and he didn't get recruited. And he could have given up, right? Because like, nobody wants me, but he just did what he knew to do. And it has worked out for him, I would say, quite well.
I remember seeing him play for Davidson, and I said, he's going to get drafted. I knew, I didn't know he would be as good as he
and transformational in the game, right?
I didn't know
sometimes that. and to the detriment, some people say, to the game, but transformational. And that's because he stayed true to who he was. And I think about just one other basketball analogy, and then I'll finish with the unapologetically you part. Russell Westbrook, when he was on the Lakers, right? And a lot of people saying it wasn't going to work and it wouldn't fit. And you kept hearing this phrase, Russ just needs to be Russ, right? That he kept trying to do something different and be someone that he wasn't. It turns out maybe that just wasn't a good fit for him. He didn't need to change. There needed to be a recognition that that particular team wasn't the team for him. When he went to the Clippers, I think it worked out a little better. And I haven't paid attention recently, but it seems the last time I heard anything or paid attention that his time in Denver is working out quite well for him. He and Jokic, Nikola Jokic are gelling well, right? So sometimes it's not that the person needs to change. It's just that it's not the right fit for them. And so I think about the halftime show, and And I bring this up not for political reasons, right? We don't really talk politics here on the show, but it's important to know who you are, right?
Mhm.
And we're about self-awareness here. And a lot of the comments that I saw in the last couple of days were that wasn't as good as XYZ's halftime show. And why didn't this person, Kendrick Lamar is the performer for the halftime show, why didn't he do these songs or do it this way? Or it wasn't high energy and it wasn't, he is who he is, right? And he was hired to do this gig knowing whoever hired him, JC, I believe, um, but knowing who he is and what he brings to the table. And so we have to learn to, one, accept who we are, know who we are, accept who we are, and be okay with bringing to the table what we bring to the table and letting other people's expectations of us to be someone else, the leader that they had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that they wish they could have tomorrow, right? We have to let all that stuff go because it's not relevant to us. That's somebody else's stuff. And if the fit isn't right, right, then you don't change. You can change your situation,
Right.
right? If you don't fit here, you can change the situation. So it wasn't so much that in the midst of the game, but it's one of those things that in the day since the comments about how he wasn't Usher and he wasn't, Beyonce or ZZ Top or whomever people kept throwing up as their favorite show of all time, right? And the debate on whether this was a good show or bad show, I'm not here for that.
But
I'm here for he is who he is. I'm not a Kendrick Lamar fan, and I was talking with my husband. I don't know, Monday or Tuesday, and I was like, if you had offered me $10 million to name a Kendrick Lamar song, I could. I still can't. I still can't. That doesn't mean that he's not great at what he does. I just don't know him.
well, here's the thing, and one of the things that, and this is not political, but it touches on politics. One of the things that I think that people need to understand is that the pie is big enough for everybody, but people only want the pie to be big enough for them. And so I just wish people would stop. There was I'm going to digress a little bit. Talking self-awareness, and when I say it might be a little controversial here, um, I think that some people's comments are bordering on racism. So,
I wouldn't disagree with you.
but there are some people that would say that they're not racist, but it's like, well, then know yourself because you're sounding like a racist. That's one thing. The other part of it is you can't just have your performer do the Super Bowl every single time.
Right.
Because if that were the case, you would stop liking your performer. The reason why these things are, stand out is because they're spectacles. And if it's your favorite performer, you get an opportunity to see them in the biggest stage, right? That's like always like in the biggest stage. So you get an opportunity to do that. So that's another thing. Kendrick, I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm not a super fan. I know his music. I'm a musician, and I did a lot of hip hop back in the day, so I'm attuned to that. But whether or not hip hop or Kendrick Lamar is your cup of tea, you have to give other people the opportunity to have their slice of the pie. You can't have all the pie, and I think that that's the thing that we sometimes forget. We forget it as citizens of the country. We forget it as people in organizations. We forget it as people as part of a system. Sometimes you can't have everything your way.
Right.
But what are you doing, when things aren't your way? What are you doing to learn or make connections? There's an opportunity for people that did not like the halftime show. Instead of blasting the other person that liked it, why don't you find out why they liked it?
Yeah.
So there are learning opportunities to and if somebody says that, well, your comments sound insensitive and maybe borderline racist, gives you an opportunity to have a discussion with them.
Absolutely.
But I don't think these people, on either side, really care about that. What they care about is, I'm going to punch this person so hard with my words that they're going to regret saying what they said, and that does no one any good.
You're absolutely right, and bringing your comments to to a corporate environment. Everyone is not going to like you as their boss, right? As a leader, and they don't have to. They don't have to, in order to respect you as a leader. And how you have them do that is to show up as yourself.
Yeah.
Right? To be someone who is clear about who you are, what your values are, what it is you want to embody, and what it is you want to bring forth from your team, how you want to build them up. They don't have to like you. Right. And everyone on the team doesn't have to agree on whether or not any one particular leader is a good, effective, bad, whatever label you want to put on someone. Everyone on the team doesn't have to agree that they're that. People are going to see things through their own lens, right? Yeah. To your point. So we all have lenses. We all have biases, and which the term that you always use, Robert.
I use many over and over again.
And related to this is sort of right how we see things.
Filter.
We'll go with filter. You use a different word, and I can't think of what it is. Yeah, of course, as soon as we're done, it'll come to me, and I'll send you a text and say, this is what I was thinking. But right, everyone doesn't have to be on the same page about what they think of you as a person or a leader in order to respect you as that leader, and to gel around the common vision that you have as a team, right? And so if you are someone who is you know yourself, you've got great self-awareness, learn to trust your instincts and your decision making. Right. And so you show up as yourself, you become a stronger leader, and stop looking for approval from everyone. Right. And be someone who's willing to say the difficult things, the hard things that need to be said in order to get the members of your team to do what they're there to do, right? Sometimes it takes difficult conversations. And so you have to be honest and direct and unafraid to share your perspective. And as you step into that, you can, take more comfort again in who you are. And I'll end with this. Lean into what makes you different. Mm-hmm. Right? That distinguishes you from other people. All too often, we're so busy trying to conform and to please people that we lose what makes us different. And it leads to things that are not necessarily helpful for your team. Groupthink. Right. And other things along that line. So be willing to stand up, be who you are, be yourself, bring your strengths, your talents, your gifts to the table, sharing them with others and helping them do the same, right? Lead with authenticity, confidence, and that self-awareness, and you will have people respecting you even if they don't like you.
Yeah.
It's okay. You will have their respect because they know that you are true to who you are.
Agreed.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. Any final thoughts before you share with the audience how they can get in touch with you if they want to work on any of these lessons or others that they need to work on?
Yeah, my final thought is something that I mentioned as one of the lessons is have some contingency plans. I think I may have said that before on the show, but I'm big on contingency plans because your plan may not work, and you don't want to keep trying to fit a, what do they say, a round peg into a square hole. You want to do something different and get a better result.
Love it. Love it. So, how does someone get in touch with you if they would like to explore working with you?
Sure, they can reach out to me at inspire me at roberthilliardcoaching.com, or they can just go to my website, Robert Hilliard Coaching, and fill out that contact form and let me know what challenges you're experiencing or what goals you have, and we can set up a discovery call and figure out if we're a good match for each other.
They're a good match for you. I'm just trusting that that's the case. And if you would like to get in touch with me, you can reach out at shiftingintoaction.now.site. Shiftingintoaction.now.site. Would love to hear from you. We can discuss whether or not I'm a good fit for you. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you have some topics that you would like for us to explore, you can drop those there as well. So, with that, again, thank you for joining us on the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond, Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. And until next time, be you, be persistent, have a plan, right? Work your plan, be willing to adjust, galvanize that language, be you,
Do all this stuff.
and be persistent, right? All of the things, and take care.
Bye now.